Welcome back on the Elevate series for maybe the most anticipated conversation of the series. I was going to surprise you with that, Dr. Ryan. But we have board certified neurologist Dr. Ryan Williamson here on the line with us. And as you've heard me reference in different conversations, one of the biggest threats, if you're going to use that word, that I see happening in the world beyond AI, beyond, the tariffs and economic, instability and inflation and the market and everything else is this. And maybe, Ryan, you have been like subtly brainwashing me, haha, with some of this, awareness about cognitive decline and memory loss and brain fatigue and just cognitive overload. But it has been just growing in importance. I've actually made a lot of lifestyle changes thanks to you that have really helped me to grow my energy, which is shocking because I'm like one of the most energetic people I know. But it has improved my focus. It helped me overcome my concussion faster than I thought it was going to, mental clarity, thanks to the information that you've been willing to share just on the side when you're traveling to different hospitals across the country as a doctor. So just thank you for carving time. I see you're in your scrubs right now. You are in New Orleans. And I'm just really excited to dig into this conversation with you because I think it's the most important one of the whole summit, actually.
No pressure. Well, thank you, Amber, for the warm introduction. And I'm very happy to be here with you, as always. We obviously communicate regularly and have these conversations, and they are important conversations. And to your point, being here on a work week, I really wanted to make the time to talk about it because the world is in a very interesting place right now, as has been my observation, and I think is why you decided to launch the Elevate series and get so many experts on here in their own domains to talk about it. And we can go any number of ways you want, and I can launch into what I'm seeing in the hospital or in my own networks, or I'm here for you. So wherever you want to go.
How on earth are we going to get this conversation in like 30 minutes? Let's see. So Ryan and I met each other through Justin Donald's lifestyle mastermind. And so we got to see Justin talking last week about what he's seeing in his different investor groups, which was really exciting. So, Ryan, of course, you are a high net worth investor. You're a doctor. You also started your own brand, Transcend Health. Your network is rapidly expanding. You're moving like the speed of light towards your own book launch in September, The Incredible Brain. And so I do think that because of all of the different worlds that you live in, you do have a really unique vantage point. Talk to me about what you're seeing, just general human behavior. What are some of the new cases that are coming into the hospital? What are you seeing inside of your membership and with your coaching clients? Any trends, shocking data, like not to scare us, but to scare us a little better, just wake us up rather?
Yes. And to take that even a step further, living in Atlanta, being in New Orleans, I've had this opportunity and privilege to travel all across the country and throughout my practice. And I haven't been to all 50 states yet, but I've been coast to coast and Southwest and Pacific Northwest, Northeast, all over. And it is interesting to see how many ways, well, really the uniformity of failure of Western medicine, unfortunately, and the impact that has on us as individuals. And this comes at a very interesting time because, as you've discussed with some of these other experts, we have the rise of AI. We have shifts in the big cycles, as I think Ryan Levesque referenced.
Yes.
And we have these existential threats that are coming to our future that I'm very optimistic about. I think that AI is only going to improve humanity if we continue to get it right and make sure that it's ultimate truth seeking and has our best interest in mind. But as far as being displaced as the superintelligence on the planet as humans and everything that entails, not to mention just the constant barrage of stress that we all deal with, this is a very difficult recipe to navigate. Because when you look at how our brains operate and you look at how we're wired, our brains have an anatomy and a physiology, so a structure and a function. And our brains developed and we evolved in a very, very different world than what we live in today. And this consumption of information, especially digital information. I mean, here we are sitting in different states and different parts of the country, a resolution screen with artificial light beaming into our eyes. We're able to do some amazing things, but it's simply not how we were designed. And too much of that can be problematic for the brain. And, we're kind of thrown into this stressful world against our will, which sounds really wild and maybe kind of oddly philosophical, but it's true. And we end up accepting the world we live in as normal and the things that we see as normal, when in fact they couldn't be more abnormal with respect to how we work the best. And as an example of that, what do? We wake up every day to, again, an artificial alarm, artificial light. We stress to get to work on time. We sit in a car all day. We don't move, maybe go to a job that we aren't optimally fulfilled by and sit for 8, 10, 12 hours there, sit on our way home, only to come home and maybe get a couple hours with family, and then try to process and decompress and escape all of that, and maybe have a drink or two, and maybe not eat the healthiest thing, try to get some sleep, which usually isn't quality sleep. And then we wake up and we do it all over again. And that's our life. And the reason I say all that is that this is not optimal for brain health. This is not optimal for body health. And I think returning to how we were designed to function is a very important concept that a lot of people really should understand. And one way that I think about this have to do with two basic structures in the brain when it comes to our processing stress. One is called the prefrontal cortex that your audience may have heard about, and another is the amygdala. Mm-hmm. And I think of these as opposites. So the prefrontal cortex is this piece right behind your skull, right here, right behind your forehead. And it's the newest and most advanced and most robust part of our brain. It's part of your frontal lobe, which the frontal lobe takes up about the front third of your brain, and it lets us think and plan and move and do things. But really the higher order stuff. So the flow state, the CEO, the entrepreneur.
Love that part.
Yeah, that part, right? That part, the feel good part. All of that has to do with your prefrontal cortex, the connections to your prefrontal cortex being fully intact and you firing well. And when people are in that state, they do quite well. But all of these things that I mentioned, right? All this daily stress and chaos and lack of movement and the wrong diet and poor sleep and just stress, that actually acutely knocks the connections to the prefrontal cortex offline. So you can't access it. So if you've ever felt like, oh, something stressful happens, I don't know, someone cuts me off in traffic, or I have a difficult conversation with somebody, or just insert stressor here, and you have that kind of deer in the headlights moment and you can't think, there's a neuroanatomic reason for that, because you can't access that part of your brain temporarily, right? Mm-hmm. So that's in the acute moment. What stress also does is it boosts the connections to that amygdala, that second structure. And the best way I can describe the amygdala, it's like a little almond-sized shaped structure deeper within your brain, and that's your fear center. And so rather than the prefrontal cortex keeping you in that calm, collected state, you go into panic mode, right? And that's just one crisis at a time. When you are experiencing daily crises and the constant suboptimal lifestyle, which is what I see everywhere, the connections to your prefrontal cortex eventually go away, or they become less robust. I mean, you still have some access to it, but in general, this is moving you away from that creative flow state permanently in terms of the way your brain is wired. And it is upregulating or reinforcing the connections to the amygdala, which keep you stressed out. And over time, this actually thins the gray matter. So it thins the brain cells in the prefrontal cortex. So it makes it even harder to rewire yourself to get back to that higher state, to where you're feeling better. And this is a major problem, Amber. Not a lot of people.
I mean, my brain I feel like my amygdala is activated right now. And I'm like, wait, no. Because I'm thinking back to 2020 when COVID first hit, because there's so much that we can learn about this moment from how the world responded to that moment. And I feel like we were in this massive shock and awe stage. And then we were so much was required of us individually at that time. The stress was through the roof with our family getting COVID, people passing away, moves, loss of jobs, uncertainty at an all-time high. I mean, that rocked the world. And then we were just supposed to like go back to work. And it was like the new normal. And I think everybody was hoping it would go back to something, some version of the world that we experienced before COVID, but it didn't. So then, in my observation in marketing, like people just pushed that down and started coping and got more guarded, stopped using their voice as much. They certainly weren't as open. And, you know, it had a huge impact on marketing. A lot of marketers don't even look at it this way. But this has just been my vantage point over the years. And it's like now with the rise of AI and elections and everything else, I feel like that coping is like at an all-time high. People, it's almost like they have an inability to process what's happening. And it's just like getting cemented down. And it's almost like dumbing us down to some degree. And I don't think people know what to do about that feeling except go have another drink or go eat more Oreos or just stop talking to people and retreat and avoid. And like, that's terrifying. So, what do we do about this? How do I tell my amygdala to stop firing so I can preserve more energy for my prefrontal cortex? Like, that's what I want to know. Anybody else?
Yes. Our observations are parallel, and I think we all saw that. The COVID pandemic was horrible, and that is a gross understatement. You know this, but I was active duty at the time and was deployed to New York, which was a ground zero, and I mean people were dying left and right. I mean it was a horrific situation that had my amygdala certainly on full alert. And you're right. I think when people have not taken the time to process what all that was, and again, returning to this new normal, which is not their fault. And I want people to understand that too. You're not doing this intentionally. I think most people are just unaware of the fact of what is happening, period. I think they can identify, okay, maybe I feel stressed or something doesn't feel quite right, or there's some vague sense, I think, or an intuition that a lot of people get. But they certainly, I mean, most people don't understand the brain like a neuroscientist or a neurologist or somebody would, right? And why would you? Because you wouldn't want to go through that much school and that much brain stuff, I assure you. But the numbers that I'm familiar with are that about half of Americans report chronic stress in their lives every day. And 75% report feeling stressed sometime in the last month. And Amber, those are just the people that are willing to admit it or can admit it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was probably higher, I would assume.
This morning, as I was walking into the hospital, I literally stopped to talk to a security guard who was the most pleasant gentleman I've ever met. And I asked him, I said, like, what makes you so happy? Because he's such an abnormality in my day, which is terrible to think about.
I know. Yeah.
We had a beautiful conversation. The guy is such a pleasant gentleman, but my observation is that most people are just, like you said, they're coping and they're just barely getting through their day, bouncing from crisis to crisis. So anyway, I think we've beat the dead horse to a point. Yeah. We get it. That's where we are. You asked, what can we do to strengthen these connections or to stay away from the amygdala zone? And the good news is that this is really simple and this is really easy, but we just have to identify it. And people need to understand that they need to take the right actions to make the right changes to their brain. And that's all it is. And what are those actions? Well, it's things like prioritizing your sleep, because guess what? When you achieve quality sleep, you rest well and you can wake up refreshed. And there's a whole host of physiologic changes that happen in your body that actually allow your brain to reheal and help reset so you can show up for your day and be more present and be more focused. And over time, that heals the connection to the prefrontal cortex and allows you to be more in control, right?
So that's how much sleep are we talking about? I mean, 8 hours is what everybody's been saying on the show.
Yeah. So physiologically, most people need somewhere between 7 to 9. That's kind of the average number. And everybody kind of has I'm maybe closer to 7.5. My wife, Corey's probably closer to 9 and everybody's somewhere in between. So the best way to track that is with some sort of biometric tracker. I mean, I wear an Oura ring. I don't have a relationship to Oura, but it's just a very helpful tool. And I would encourage people to get whatever, Apple Watch, Fitbit, Whoop Band. I mean, pick your tracker and really follow your sleep patterns, because it's so important to be able to monitor quality sleep. And that's just, so again, there's, again, like you said, we have 30 minutes. There's so many directions to go with
Well,
this.
but I will add just really quick a plug, because you were very generous, and I want to share that on the Elevate series webpage, Dr. Ryan has given 3 different bonuses. They're 15-minute videos each on brain, stress, and sleep protocols. So he also has like this companion workbook that goes with it, and some like bullet lists of the things that you must remember in terms of those 3 areas. So, I mean, definitely go there for more information, and his own website, Transcend Health. But I just know, yeah, we're trying to pack it in. So keep going.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, so I won't belabor sleep then. If anybody can take advantage of that free resource, please do. It'd be my pleasure to help in any way I can. But quality sleep does just wonders for the body. And I mean, that's we'll skip the rest of it, but getting that prefrontal cortex back online is another way. How else can you do this? Well, again, I mentioned the reason I was talking about waking up, not feeling rested, and sitting, and the stress, and driving to the job that you don't enjoy, is that we don't really move like we're supposed to, like we're designed to. So being purposeful about integrating daily movement is a non-negotiable. It is, Amber, it is how we are designed. You have to move every day. And I believe, again, about 3/4 of Americans don't even achieve basic movement guidelines that the FDA sets forth. And I mean, we're talking like that's lifting weights twice a week and maybe a little bit of cardio here and there. I mean, these are not robust guidelines like to go be an Olympic athlete. I mean, this is just the basics. So you've got to get up and move. And I mean, that could look, as simple as hitting your 10,000 steps a day, because that
Is that
helps.
the baseline, 10,000?
There's ample data to suggest that activates enough changes in the body to get started. I mean, that would be my bare minimum. So, I mean, it moves the needle. So there's, it lowers all-cause mortality, or the chance of dying of anything, by about 40%. So that's a huge plus, right? Just by getting up and walking. And again, I get back to, I keep saying, okay, our brains evolved over thousands of years, and now we're in this modern society. We're all stressed out. It's not optimal. All those things. Well, think about what your ancestors did. They got up every day with the sun, right? That's what woke them up. There's no artificial light, and they're probably a little hungry because maybe they hadn't eaten in a day or two, because they maybe didn't have any food, and they said, "Man, we got to go find some stuff." And how do you go find some stuff? You go walk and find it. And so maybe you've got to walk 3, 4, 5 miles or whatever, find a handful of berries or some roots, maybe a small animal, whatever it was, and that's how we lived. So these periods of maybe eating a little bit and then walking and fasting, eating a little bit, walking and fasting, having our circadian rhythm be in check, which is regulates our 24-hour cycle, regulated by the sun and by dark. And by sitting in artificial light, we are constantly challenging our natural physiologic state. And that bandwidth is only so limited before changes start happening in our body that contribute to that elevated stress, that elevated amygdala response that reinforces the wrong connections, not the right connections. Remember, take actions that reinforce the right connections in your brain. That's what you want to do. And so returning to how we are just designed to work. And as you know, I love to race cars, so I always give like a car analogy. But if you didn't take your car to the dealership, or go through the tune-ups and the oil changes and all the things you're supposed to do, or tried to run the thing at red line, right, the motor's going to blow, or something bad's going to happen. And unfortunately, we don't come with gauges like a car does.
That would be so nice, though.
It would be. It'd be a little weird, but yeah. I mean, we can draw labs and we can take pictures, and those things are helpful. But one of the scariest things to me is that what we call the hallmarks of aging. So these are these microscopic subcellular changes that take place in our body. We've identified about 12 of them that we think are relevant, and there'll probably be more, and we'll develop more and understand better in the coming decades with AI, et cetera. Probably not even decades, probably a matter of years. But in either case, these are changes that we do not have the capability to detect. So we just know they're happening, and either a healthy and optimal lifestyle or the wrong lifestyle is helping your cells age at a slower rate, or they're making them age at an accelerated rate. And that's a serious problem, because this accelerates the timeline towards chronic disease and so issues like high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, all of these things that lead to heart attacks, strokes, premature dementia, and even premature death, right? This is literally the path. This is what I see every day in the hospital. This is what I get called for, unfortunately. And Amber, up to 90% of this is totally preventable, if not more. That's up to you.
That's the good news, everyone. 90%. That's a good statistic for sure. Wow.
Yes. So I keep veering off course here. I know we were talking about prefrontal cortex versus amygdala and this whole stress
Well,
response.
it's all related. You're talking about
Yes.
repairing these connections, and that's helpful. So through sleep and diet and exercise and just these basic functions that we've heard of before, but maybe don't do. We haven't been prioritizing them. We make these excuses, but then we're wondering in the back of our minds, like, gosh, I'm stressed out all of the time. This doesn't feel natural. Like my brain isn't working the way that I need it to right now. Well, if you want to change that, you've got to do these function, these protocols that you've outlined to then repair, that wiring to your prefrontal cortex so that you can stay in a flow state. Did I get that right?
Yes, nailed it. Perfect.
Awesome.
So quality sleep, moving every day, doing the right kind of exercise. Again, the 10,000 steps is the start. So dedicated cardiovascular activity, dedicated strength training, working on what's called your VO2 max, which is your high level of cardiorespiratory fitness. Those are all things you can do. And then generally managing stress. And I think one of the resources that you have is the stress management piece. So I won't belabor that, but there are specific.
Can we go into it a little bit? Because I find myself I've been around you for a year. I have been studying these things for years. And I have to tell you that for whatever reason, my personality, it is so fast and easy to go into that stress response. I do identify myself as a highly sensitive person, and the environment that I was raised in was very chaotic. I'm not pointing fingers, but I think that I've just always had this activated stress response. And even now, I'm very aware of it. When it happens, it just takes over me. And I have all of these little micro actions and tools and things that I try to do to stabilize it, but it just is so hard. Does everybody have that experience, or am I just the outlier here? And what do I do about it?
Amber, I think
being honest, folks.
I think most people have that experience. And this is precisely what I mean by over time, these connections become more and more set in and firm and harder to unwind and undo. And that's why I really want people to be intentional about the lifestyle they put in place. And I think my good friend Dave Allred, I think, says something like, most people spend more time planning their annual family vacation every year than they do their life or really what's meaningful to them, which is true, but also insane.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I really think if people took the time to just push away and sit down and look at, okay, what does my day look like? Prioritize. I've got to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep. That's non-negotiable. I've got to build in my movement. I've got to make time for the meal planning. I have to make time for my stress mitigation techniques, whether that's sauna, breath work, meaningful connection with my family, sitting down together at dinner, whatever your thing is, getting clear on that and making it an intentional, purposeful part of your day. That is one of the best places for most people to start. Now, in the moment, Amber, and while people are getting all of that built out and understanding, okay, I need to do all of these things. And by the way, I don't even like to say I need to. It's more of an I get to, because when you do this, it changes your whole worldview and how you feel and your level of productivity and performance. And then you get to go do more of the things you love because you're so much more present and focused and in tune and in step. But one of the best interrupters that I know of that's immediate is the physiological sigh. We talked about that one?
No.
So I do have to credit Andrew Huberman he's a neuroscientist who's very popular, Huberman Lab podcast host, who's made this more popularized. But there are data on this. But there's it's a form of breath work, but it's an immediate deep breath that you can take. And essentially you take a very slow, exaggerated deep breath in through the nose till your lungs are completely filled with air. And when you feel like you can't get any more air in, you take a short, sharp inhale through the nose a second. And that way, we can do it together if you want, or people can do it on the call if they'd like. But so once, and then you let it all go through the mouth slowly, and there you go. And this triggers a reflex that engages your parasympathetic nervous system. And there, you visibly relaxed when you did that.
I just felt like this wave come over me. That was really nice. Okay.
So that's the quickest, easiest way that I know of for somebody to just snap out of that stress mode. And to take that a step further, because it can be hard to recognize stress in the moment, but you can train yourself to feel when your muscles are getting tense and you're getting spun up and you're starting to have that feeling, my heart rate's increasing, I'm sweating, I'm feeling stressed. So that's called biofeedback. So learning how to interpret what your body's telling you, right? So recognizing that it's happening. And again, this is one of my major challenges with what I talk to with people every day, or talk about with people every day, is getting them to actually recognize what's going on and becoming aware of it. Because again, people are just so conditioned to think this is normal, and it's not. It's just not how we're designed to be.
Okay, gosh, I have so many things I want to ask you, and I'm just aware of the schedule. So one thing I want to bring up, and I've never asked you this before, is what can you share about the impact of love, right? Being in a state of connection. Because I mean, I have really prided myself on the level of quality of relationships of people that I have around me. And because of that connectedness, I have to believe that that is doing some sort of healing, or it helps with longevity in a way that I don't understand, right? I mean, I just know what I feel like in the relationships that I have. It makes me feel like I'm in that flow state. So, do you have any data or statistics or information about that?
Yes, your intuition is correct, Amber, per usual. So, believe it or not, love and healthy relationships, healthy attachments to others is another way people can enhance that connection to their prefrontal cortex and
Oh,
downregulate the connection to the amygdala. And there are data to support this. So again, I'm not kidding. You're spot on here. And another way that I think about this, there's so remember that parasympathetic is the relax, rest, digest, the breath work, all of these. The opposite of that is your sympathetic nervous system, which is intimately connected to the amygdala. And when all of this starts firing, your brain sends another signal to your adrenal glands, which sit right on top of your kidneys, and those pump out cortisol. And cortisol circulates, and that elevates your blood sugar, and it tenses your muscles, and it makes you breathe faster and do all these things. It makes you feel stressed, right? So cortisol over time shortens your lifespan. Too much cortisol. You need it in the short term, but long-term elevated levels of cortisol through all of the changes that it creates in the body will actually shorten your lifespan. How can you counteract that? Well, in addition to everything else we've already covered and more, healthy relationships and spending quality time with people. So bonding over meals with friends and loved ones, going for Mother's Day hikes with your son out in Colorado, if that's your thing. Even my wife Corey just drove down here to hang out with me, thankfully for the weekend. And I literally, when she got here with my dogs, I got so relaxed, and she was like, "Are you gonna fall asleep?" And I said, "I mean, I might. I've got to get on with Amber here shortly." But I felt so relaxed and so happy, and I couldn't help but think, oh my gosh, like this is how important this is to me and to people, to have something like that in your life. I mean, whether it's, and it can literally, there's studies on pets too. It could be your dog or your cat or whatever. It doesn't have to be a wife. It doesn't have to be a husband. It could be, your best friend, anybody. Meaningful human connections are so healthy. And again, I think in a disconnected world where we're doing things over screens, I mean, in some ways we're connected, but in other ways we're disconnected. And there's nothing like being with somebody, sharing a meal, spending quality time, and yes, and that, so the bonding hormone, the oxytocin is what that's called. It's the same that's released when a mother puts a baby on her chest for the first time, right? I mean, there's a true deep physiologic connection that also rewires these neural circuits, which again, taking that right kind of action to make the right kind of changes in your brain, right? That's all it takes.
So it seems to me that the more of these things that I do that you've just outlined, the faster I'm going to start to rewire.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you could blow off sleep, and you could have a lot of great connection, and you could not adopt sauna, but you could improve your diet and you would see some result. But if you did all four of those things, you'd see a lot better of a result a lot faster, right? I just have to outline that because sometimes I'm thinking back to former Amber. It just felt like it made sense and it seemed simple, but for whatever circumstance, was happening at the time, it just seemed like something I'd have to put off till later. It was just too much to adopt all at once. So maybe a place to start is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you're the doctor here, not me, but maybe some of the micro actions and then build up versus is there, I mean, I'm also kind of wondering, you hear about people going cold turkey, and I imagine that might have its own jerk reaction to the body too. I don't know. Can you speak into that briefly?
Yes. So the only qualifier I will add is that you don't try to do too much at once. Yes. But sleep, of all of those, sleep and exercise probably, but sleep is very important because that's when the changes take place. So you can start to rewire those circuits, but to really make them permanent, those connections are really solidified when you achieve quality sleep. So if you're gonna, don't go buy a sauna and buy a cold plunge and start a gym membership. That may be way too much for the average person, right? That's a lot of change. And yes, there's data that meaningfully sustainable change, the best kind of change, is the change that you're going to stick to, right? So pick one thing and then really master that new habit, and then you're going to feel better. And this is really where it gets fun. When I say it's easy, this is actually quite fun too. When you start to feel your body change, right? You start to feel better, and you start to unplug a little bit from what you realize has been happening, and you go, man, I'm feeling better. Like, I want to do the next thing. And then you build the next thing in and you feel even better. And this compounds, I mean, quite literally compounds for your wellness, your performance, your physical health, your sleep. I mean, I put it this way, in the opposite way, I've gotten so used to this intentional lifestyle I've created that if I get a bad night's sleep, or I eat the wrong thing, or I skip the gym, I'm like, whoa, like this is not okay. So, and
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really did. Thank you. And honestly, the way that I want to end, Ryan, and I feel so fortunate. So I'm just full transparency. I'm a part of Ryan's membership at Transcend Health. I've hired him for private coaching. I have been around so many doctors. I mean, Ryan knows this because I've shared the doctors list of people that I've been around, just worked with over the years. And not knocking anybody else, but I have found that Ryan is most aligned with my core values and my lifestyle, and like just who I want to be around, and just his quality of science-backed, researched information, in this age of misinformation everywhere. So I just, I'm totally on board with this guy. I'm his number one fan, and I just really appreciate everything that you share, Ryan, because I think a lot of doctors in your position might be burnt out. They may not know how to get information out online. And frankly, you didn't either, but you knew the importance of it. That was part of your legacy, to get this information out. You didn't have to do this. You chose to do this. And I respect the heck out of that. So how I want to end this time together with you is just give you an open platform here. What is the message that's in your heart that you want to share the most with humanity right now? What do you really believe? What do you really want to say to people? And I'd love to give you this time and space to share that.
Thank you, Amber. And it's been a pleasure for our relationship to develop over the last year, and just it's been a fun journey together. So I look forward to what's next. What I really want to tell people is that I just want people to wake up and to realize that this is all you've got. It's so easy to put things off, or to make excuses, or say, I'll get to that tomorrow. But you only get one shot at life. And now the tiniest sliver of the now is all we have. And there's no time like the present to just wake up and change. And it doesn't take effort. It doesn't take a ton of effort. It's really simple. It's very easy, like I said, to implement the right actions that make the right changes in your brain, to rewire your brain. This is totally within your control. But I really think somebody just needs to shine a light on that for us. And I think that's a big part of the problem, is that people just aren't aware of that. And that's part of what I do at Transcend Health, through our membership, through private coaching, through our group coaching, through my book that Amber mentioned that's coming out in the fall. So if there's in any videos I put out, I try to have something for everybody as best I can. but any way that you can just take some agency and some control back in your life, think about how that will compound, not just today, not next week, but for your whole life, your family, your business, your future, and the impact that has on the world. And that is incredibly powerful, and you can do it.
Thank you. I mean, I know I'm taking my health more serious now in this moment than ever before, because we have some really big things to figure out as entrepreneurs. You know, not just short term, long term. What am I going to do for my family? How is my career going to change? How is life going to change? And it's going to happen very quickly. And if the more I avoid, the more I escape, the more I get, taken down by exhaustion, then the more the wave is just going to take me down. And I'm not willing to do that. And I hope that through the Elevate series, I have empowered you to activate your passion and courage centers to take action in the little ways that you possibly can, and to be a part of a community that's going to continue to have these really high level, high impact, conscious conversations. We are barreling toward an in-person summit that I'm hosting in Boulder, Colorado in September. Ryan will be there to speak on stage for 90 minutes, going deeper into intervention, rewiring, and repair. We are also going to celebrate the launch of his book, which is such an honor. And I really encourage all of you to go get access now to those 3 15-minute videos that he created. I got early access. I watched them more than once. I thought they were fantastic. So Ryan, thanks again for your heart and for your energy and intellect and sharing that with this community. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Amber. We appreciate you.
All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow on the Elevate series. So share this with friends and we'll see you then. Thanks so much.